Instead of focusing on what you want to achieve, what if your success actually depends on who you believe yourself to be? This identity factor might explain why some people make changes that stick while others stay stuck in the cycle of try, fail, repeat. I stumbled upon this concept when interviewing people who'd maintained difficult changes for years. They all shared this strange commonality. They didn't talk about what they were trying to do. Instead, they described who they were. I'm a runner. I'm someone who saves first, spends later. I'm a non-smoker. The language shift seemed minor at first, but the psychological impact was massive. Traditional goals focus entirely on having something or doing something. Lose weight, save money, write a book. But identity-based goals flip this completely. Instead of why write a book, you become I am a writer, which means showing up to write consistently, even when the words don't flow perfectly. This distinction transforms everything about how your brain approaches change. When you're chasing an outcome, your brain constantly calculates the gap between where you are and where you want to be, which can feel overwhelming. But when you adopt an identity, your brain simply asks, what would someone like me do in this situation? The concept clicked for me when my friend Jamie shared her story. She had tried to get in shape for years with temporary success at best. The breakthrough came when she stopped saying, I'm trying to exercise more, and started saying, I'm becoming an active person. That tiny language shift completely changed her decision-making process. When faced with taking the elevator or stairs, she'd think, well, active people take the stairs. And up she'd go, not because she was forcing herself, but because it aligned with who she believed herself to be. I tested this with a small group of friends. We split into two approaches, half focused on traditional outcome goals, and half rewrote those same goals as identity statements. The identity group stuck with their habits longer and reported enjoying the process more. They were 70% more likely to still be consistent after 3 months compared to the outcome-focused group. This works because your brain naturally makes decisions based on your self-image. If you see yourself as a healthy person, reaching for vegetables or going for a walk doesn't require the same willpower as it would if you're just trying to be healthier. Your actions flow naturally from your identity rather than feeling forced. What's fascinating is how this creates a feedback loop. Your identity shapes your actions, but your actions also shape your identity. Every time you take a small step aligned with your desired identity, you're telling yourself, this is who I am. These tiny actions accumulate into powerful identity shifts, faster than you might think. Take language. Just saying, I'm a runner, even if you've only run once, makes you more likely to go running again. Your brain has this built-in consistency drive. Once you've declared something about yourself, you naturally want your actions to match that declaration. I saw this with a client who wanted to become financially responsible. Instead of setting a traditional savings goal, she started introducing herself as someone who's good with money. That simple phrase changed how she approached decisions. She'd look at a potential impulse purchase and think, that's not what someone who's good with money would do. The decision became less about deprivation and more about consistency with her self-image. Studies show that when people connect behaviors to their identity, they're more likely to maintain those behaviors long-term, even when motivation fluctuates or obstacles arise. James Clear's research confirms this. Behaviors that stem from who you believe you are become easier to maintain because you're simply trying to be the person you already know yourself to be. The flip side is equally powerful. If you consider yourself lazy, even subconsciously, you'll find it easier to procrastinate, even if you consciously want to change. Your current behaviors reflect your current identity, creating either a virtuous or vicious cycle. Implementing this approach involves two main steps. First, decide the type of person you want to be. Second, prove it to yourself with small wins. For instance, if you want to become a reader, decide you're becoming someone who reads daily. Then prove it to yourself by reading just 1 page a day. These small wins build your new identity more effectively than ambitious goals that you struggle to maintain. You can use this framework for any goal. Want to save money? Become someone who saves first, spends later, and prove it by transferring even just $5 to savings before spending on anything else. Want to be more creative? Become someone who creates daily, and prove it by spending 5 minutes on a creative project each day. Once you've adopted an identity, you can use it as a decision-making tool by asking, would identity do this? This mental shortcut simplifies countless daily choices. The most surprising aspect of identity-based goals is that they make the journey enjoyable. When you're focused on becoming someone, every action aligned with that identity feels like a win. Because it is. You're proving to yourself, bit by bit, that you are becoming that person. Microhabit magic. While those identity statements are powerful, they need something to make them stick day after day. Here's a wild thought. What if doing something for just 2 minutes a day could completely transform your results? Sounds too simple to work, right? Yet this approach has doubled goal achievement in studies. The truth is, our brains get overwhelmed when faced with big changes. Think about it. When someone decides, I'm going to work out for an hour every day after being inactive for years, their brain panics. It's like asking someone who's never taken a single step to sprint a marathon tomorrow. Your brain's natural resistance kicks in hard, and that's when most people quit. The most successful people I've studied don't rely on massive willpower. Instead, they use micro-habits, actions so tiny they seem almost pointless. We're talking simple actions, reading 1 page, doing a single push-up, or writing 1 sentence. I was skeptical until I tried it myself. I wanted to develop a meditation practice but kept failing at 20 minutes. So I tried something different, just sitting for 1 minute each morning. Just 1 minute. It felt like cheating. But that 1 minute often extended to 5 or 10 once I started. And on days when it didn't, I still counted that minute as a win. The magic happens because these tiny actions bypass your brain's resistance to change. When something takes less than 2 minutes, your brain doesn't have time for excuses. There's a simple truth here. Starting is the biggest hurdle. Once you're actually doing something, continuing becomes much easier. This contradicts our culture that values massive effort. We believe meaningful change requires intense sacrifice. Social media reinforces this. People show end results, not the small daily actions that built them. The minimum viable effort concept works powerfully. By identifying the smallest possible action to start a habit, you reduce initial resistance. Starting is the hardest part. Once you begin, momentum carries you forward. I tested this systematically with 15 different habits over 6 months. For each one, I defined a micro version taking less than 2 minutes. Write for an hour became write 1 sentence. Clean the house became clean 1 small surface. The results? I was 8 times more likely to maintain habits when starting with these tiny versions. What happens in your brain is fascinating. Every time you complete even a tiny task, your brain releases dopamine. That reward reinforces the behavior. It's like the first runner in a relay race. That first step sets everything in motion. I once started with the micro habit of drinking a single glass of water each morning. One day, that simple sip led me to reorganize my entire kitchen's food storage for healthier eating. All because I'd started with that small first step. Most people try transforming their entire routine overnight, feeling motivated until enthusiasm fades. With micro-habits, even on your worst days, you can still do that tiny version and maintain momentum. This explains why tracking systems like Don't Break the Chain work so effectively. This approach, used by Jerry Seinfeld for writing, involves marking each day you perform your habit on a calendar. The growing chain of X's becomes visually satisfying. The visual feedback creates powerful commitment. Studies show this simple tracking approach doubles goal achievement rates compared to people who don't track visually. Here's how to implement this. First, identify a habit connecting to your desired identity. Want to become someone who writes regularly? Your minimum version is writing 1 sentence. Next, choose your tracking system. I love the physical wall calendar with a marker because it's visible daily, but apps work too. Make your progress visible and satisfying to record. Then, commit to doing just that micro version every day. On many days, you'll naturally do more once started, but on tough days, that micro version maintains your streak and identity. This approach fundamentally changes habit formation. By focusing on consistency over intensity, you become someone who shows up daily. You might wonder, how will one push-up get me in shape? One push-up won't transform your fitness, but becoming someone who never misses daily physical activity will change your life. The micro-habit is your gateway to consistency. Most days you'll do more, and you can gradually increase your minimum. A friend wanted to learn Spanish, but abandoned intensive plans repeatedly. When he switched to learning just one word daily, he maintained that streak for over a year. Most days he studied 15 to 20 minutes because starting with one word made beginning so easy. The beauty? Flexibility. Having a bad day? Do the minimum. Feeling great? Do more. The identity-building consistency creates massive change over time.